Hello friends, thank you again for joining me today. Unfortunately, the heaven video is still not, the research is still not completed. I apologize. I know have promised it for the past few days now. Please forgive me. I am really trying to get as much information as possible in terms of the scriptures and how it all ties in together with salvation and receiving the Spirit. So please allow me a few more days and I'll definitely put that one up. But again, if you have not seen the other flock video that I did recently, please view it, because it will actually continue and expand more on that video. But if nothing else, let's get into today. As you can see here, I am at BibleGateway.com, and this scripture has always, I have always appreciated this scripture because it's so true. But today we're going to talk about what a religious cult, what are the signs of being in a religious cult? Now, I say that with all due respect. Okay, I don't mean any disrespect, but if it's a cult, it's a cult. There's no other way to put it. And I'm going to cite the identifying marks from 3 respected researchers of the scriptures and cults. But first, let me read this scripture because it's so beautiful and it's so true that it's happening in our days, and it happened to me in my case. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4, and this is the New Revised Standard Version. You can go to any version. You can look up any interlinear. I think there was a gentleman that apparently was a witness, and he said BibleHub.com was, you know, he was making fun of their translation. I've always said it. It doesn't matter if I show you directly from the Greek interlinear of the Jehovah's Witnesses, you still will not believe it. Why? Because look at what it says here. In their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. See, it doesn't matter. There's a spiritual aspect to spiritual blindness. See, there are deceitful spirits, and they are hard at work to make sure that you do not see the light that is in the gospel of the glory of Christ. So, but if nothing else, let's look at here, and I apologize, I wanted to get it on the screen, but I'm going to run through this real quick. Today's video will not be so long. Believe me, folks, friends, brothers, I am working hard on that heaven video, and it's going to be a pretty long video, but it's going to be well worth it, and we will leave no doubt as to us being recipients of a heavenly life, just as Christ deemed it so. All right, Ron Rhodes, he is a scholar, and he may have been a witness, I'm not quite sure, but he has a list of the identifying marks of a cult, a religious cult. And so number 1, he has authoritarian leadership. And he says authoritarianism involves the acceptance of an authority figure who exercises excessive control on cult members. As prophet or founder, this leader's word or leader's word are considered ultimate and final. And that is so true, because it doesn't matter if, and I've known of hundreds of brothers that question the authority or actually question the teachings of the witnesses, only to be told that You either accept it or you are out. So that's authoritarian. Okay. Number 2, exclusivism. Cults often believe that they alone have the truth. The cult views itself as the single means of salvation on earth, and to leave the group is to endanger one's life. This is true with, again, the Jehovah's Witnesses. We've always believed we had the truth, and if we left, we were leaving the ark, so to speak. Okay. Number 3, isolationism. Sorry, these isms are a little difficult sometimes to pronounce, but now see, isolationism. It's the more extreme cults sometimes create fortified boundaries, often precipitating tragic endings, like Waco and Jonestown. But again, some cults, like the Jehovah's Witness leaders, require members to renounce and break off associations with parents and siblings if they refuse to also live by the rules of the governing body leaders, or Jehovah's Witness leaders. Note that I say Jehovah's Witness leaders, not what the Bible teaches, because the Bible, you are free. Not free to sin, because the Bible is clear on morality. But you have to adhere to their rules. And that goes with everything as far as dress, as far as facial hair, even medical care. Okay? Number 4, opposition to independent thinking. And again, we were always taught, don't worry, the Jehovah's Witness leaders, we do the thinking for you. Okay? Just submit to what we tell you, to our interpretation. That is another identifying mark. Number 5, fear of being disfellowshipped. How many times do we ever not walk as if walking on eggshells because we were afraid to do anything that could possibly get us in trouble with the elders? You guys know what I'm talking about. It's sad, but I mean, it's if you're free, you're either gonna sin, whether you're in front of elders or in the congregation or around brothers, doesn't matter. God sees everything, and he sure as heck doesn't need any humans to be judging, because there's only one judge. Okay. Number 6, threats of satanic attack. Some cults use fear and intimidation to keep members in line. Do you remember that the teaching that you weren't to shop at any thrift stores or the Salvation Army or the Goodwill because, God forbid, you run across a dresser that has Satan inside? How silly is that? Demons cannot inhabit inanimate objects. If that was the case, nobody would carry money, because money passes through thousands of hands. It's a silly, silly thing. And of course, there's the demonic attacks. Satan is everywhere. Everywhere. We were always induced with these fear tactics, and that's another cult. That's another mark of a cult, that you might be in a cult. Matt Slick, he, I believe, is the founder of CARM, CARM.org. And he also wrote a paper on social aspects of cult-like behavior. Number 1, submission. And then he has some points under submission. Number 1, complete, almost unquestioned trust in leadership. Very true. Number 2, leaders are often seen as prophets, apostles, or special individuals with unusual connections to God. Remember, if you've seen my videos, everything is attributed to Jehovah, but except when revisions and corrections have to be made, then it's not, oh, thank you, Jehovah. No, it's, oh, I'm sorry, we are imperfect men. See, you can't have it both ways. As a matter of fact, there is a booklet that says, that's titled Return to Jehovah. It doesn't matter that you don't write or publish anything in the name of Jehovah. You are speaking on his behalf, because you're attributing everything to him. It's common sense, my brothers and friends. Number 3, increased submission to the leadership is rewarded with additional responsibilities and or roles and or praises, increasing the importance of the person within the group. Oh yeah, ministerial servant, elder, traveling overseer. Oh boy, I can tell you, you would work to try to get to that position, and God forbid you were knocked off of it, because that would be the end of your world. So it's like a Ferris wheel. You continue turning until you're finally able to get the food or get the water. You know, it's if you've ever studied Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can see that it's based off of that, because the higher you go, the more you want, and the more satisfied you become. I don't know. Number 2, exclusivity. Their group is the only true religious system, or one of the few true remnants of God's people. How many times were we told that? We are a special people. We live in a special spiritual paradise. The truth could not be farther, friends and brothers. Persecution complex. Us against them mentality. How many times did we ever walk up to someone's door and they told us, we're not interested and please do not come back? How many times did we say, oh, well, we feel sorry for those people? You see the us versus them in meetings. They're always saying, they always generalize. Anything outside the organization, they always generalize. So they lump everybody that is not a member or studying or associating into one group. That's exclusivity, because that's a persecution complex. I'm sorry. That's always an us against them mentality. Number 4, control of members' actions and thinking through repeated indoctrination and or threats of loss of salvation or receiving curses from God. How many times they tell you, you got to be at that meeting. You can't miss the meeting, because you know what happens. Jehovah may zap you that night, you know. So you have to be at that meeting so they can further indoctrinate you with the repetitive phrases. And I touched on this in one of my other videos. Number 5, isolation. Minimizing contact of church members with those outside the group. This facilitates a further control over the thinking and practices of the members by the leadership. They do this deliberately because they want you isolated so you become dependent on the group for social interaction. Number 6, love bombing. Showing great attention and love to a person in a group by others in the group to help transfer emotional dependence to the group. If you've ever welcomed a person that was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, or if you ever saw someone that you knew was not a Jehovah's Witness, they would become like they were your long lost cousin. You would welcome them with open arms. That's love bombing. That's a false love show of affection. The way you welcome them, hello, welcome, thank you for coming, that's it. But the organization teaches for us to love bomb them, and that creates a bond and would make them feel compelled to come back, but not based on what they were learning, but initially based on what we were doing. Special knowledge. Number 7, instructions and or knowledge are sometimes said to be received by leaders from God. Yes, the Jehovah's Witness leaders have, and many times they all but say it and print it, and they don't print it. They don't say this comes from Jehovah because they know that they would be in trouble, but they actually have. And in other videos I will go ahead and disclose that. If not, you can head on over to jwfacts.com and you can see all the quotes where they do claim to be a channel of God on earth. Number 2, the special knowledge can be received through vision, dreams, or new interpretations of sacred scriptures such as the Bible. Now, I've never heard of them having visions or dreams, but you gotta really wonder where they're getting these interpretations of scriptures, and then they have to change them. You really have to think, where is it that this information is coming from? Because it's certainly not God's spirit. Number 8, indoctrination. The teachings of the group are repeatedly drilled into the members, but the indoctrination usually occurs around special knowledge, and this one kind of touched on the other I think it was number 4. Yeah, control. So let's go to number 9, salvation. Salvation from the judgment of God is maintained through association and or submission with the group, its authority, and or its special knowledge. The governing body. Discreet slave. They are held to the highest of high, and salvation comes from associating with Jehovah's organization or entering Jehovah's organization on earth. Think about that. So we are dependent on the leaders for salvation because they run the organization. Number 10, groupthink. And it has a subheading here, or a bullet point. Number 1, the group's coherence is maintained by the observance to policies handed down from those in authority. This is so true. It's a ladder. It's top down. Comes from the governing body to the overseers to the elders, and then the elders down to servants and the congregation. Number 2, there is an internal enforcement of policies by members who reward proper behavior, and those who perform properly are rewarded with further inclusion and acceptance by the group. And this is something that I had realized as I was studying the psychology of a Jehovah's Witness, and it's true. When you attend a meeting at a Kingdom Hall or their church, you are automatically more or less made to conform to their thinking, made to agree with the group's thinking. And as you continue to attend, you will be given you can actually, on the very first time you attend, you can actually give what they call a comment, a public comment. And that's when you raise your hand and they call on you and they give you the microphone and you say whatever you want to say based on whatever they may be studying or teaching. But see, this for kids especially becomes a reward behavior system. See, the more they comment, the more wonderful they are in Jehovah's eyes, and it further cements in their mind that doing that gets them rewards, even though the parents at home perhaps may be jerks with them and mistreat them. But when they go to the hall, they're superstars. And the same thing for adults. You know, I would attend congregations that adults would try to outdo each other to see who would comment better and who would make the most comments and who would get the most comments. You know, it's all about competition, divide and conquer. That's something that the governing body, the Jehovah's Witness leaders, love to do because it's better that way and they can control you better. Number 11, cognitive dissonance, avoidance of critical thinking and or maintaining logically impossible beliefs and or beliefs that are inconsistent with other beliefs held by the group. This is what happens, cognitive dissonance happens whenever you run across a true Christian and they go ahead and refute a scripture by showing you another scripture that contradicts it, and then they show you another scripture that reconciles that scripture. And see, that's when Jehovah's Witnesses usually will tuck tail and run. And I mean that with all due respect, But that's literally what they do. If you go on YouTube and you see these true Christians talking and preaching to a Jehovah's Witness, once they are cornered, they will want to leave, because it becomes uncomfortable that they are having to accept something that is not their teaching and they have held as false, but is true because it's being shown to them, and many times from their own Bible. All I do my videos is on the New World Translation from jw.org, because I think that's the best witness that you can give. Now, the third person that I want to talk about is psychiatrist Robert J. Lifton, and he once taught at Harvard Medical School, and he wrote a paper in the early 80s called Cult Formation, and he delineated 3 primary characteristics which are the most common features shared by destructive cults. And this is kind of actually a rehash of the other lists that we had just reviewed, but let me point out some here that I did not see. Like number 2, a process of indoctrination or education is in use that can be seen as coercive persuasion or thought reform, commonly called brainwashing. The culmination of this process can be seen by members of the group often doing things that are not in their own best interest, but consistently in the best interest of the group and its leaders. For example, taking away your self-preservation instinct. Imagine, the Jehovah's Witness leaders are so powerful and so influential in the lives of members that they can actually get you to refuse a life-saving treatment and basically voluntarily kill yourself or allow yourself to die. Jehovah's Witness leaders are able to do what Jim Jones would have been proud of, and what David Koresh would also be proud of. David Koresh kept everybody inside Waco, inside that building, and allowed them to burn to death. Jim Jones actually had guards stationed around these people in Jonestown and made them drink, because many were actually waking up and saying, hey, wait, why am I drinking this Kool-Aid? I'm gonna die. It's poison. But the Jehovah's Witness leaders have so much influence that they actually make you sign a paper that says, I will not take a life-saving blood transfusion even if my life is in peril. Think about that. They strip away your self-preservation instinct that we are all born with. That's power. Number 3, and actually no, that one's not applicable, but he pretty much goes over the same ones as the other lists, but that's pretty much it for today's video. I hope that I will have the heaven video. I know you're probably tired of me talking about it, but it's just so important. It's so important. I thank you for listening, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. I apologize if this video went on longer than expected, but I appreciate each and every one of you for listening, for sharing, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow, God willing. Please have a blessed afternoon, and may all your endeavors towards God be blessed.